This is Shino, an orphan who was stabbed and reincarnated as a cute boy, bestowed with SS rank magic powers by 7 gods. The story begins with a boy walking towards a store while looking at his phone. Suddenly, girls come out running from there, and one of them collides with him, causing his phone to fall. They are followed by robbers, one of whom has a knife. The boy tells them, "Let's run from here," but the girls are very scared. As the robber moves forward to attack them, the boy runs towards him and stops him. He tells them, "Hey, you need to run, right?" But suddenly, blood falls down. The knife has pierced him when he was stopping the attacker. The man runs away from there. The girls run towards him, asking, "Are you okay?" But it seems like he's going to die. In the next moment, we see a boy who opens his eyes and gets up. He wonders if this place is a hospital. Then he sees a maid working who cries out with happiness, "Master Cain," and hugs him. Another woman also comes and hugs him, saying, "Do you recognize your mother?" The boy then looks at himself in the mirror and asks, "Who is this?" He then starts panicking. Both women ask, "Are you all right?" And he replies, "Absolutely not. Who is that?" pointing out in the mirror. Now he wonders if it is some kind of reincarnation. His mother checks him if he's alright as he seems confused about his own identity. She then tells her maid, Sylvia, bring something for him to eat, and they both leave him to rest for a while. As they leave, he looks in the mirror and asks, "I'm a child now. This reincarnation thing is really real. That means I really didn't survive." But he's happy that he did save the girls. To be sure if he's reincarnated or not, he starts checking his surroundings if it is real. After a while, Sylvia brings soup for him but is shocked to see that he wet his pants. She quickly moves towards him and pulls down his pants to change. Cain is so embarrassed by this that he freaks out. After changing, she starts feeding him, and it tastes so good that he says, "It's so yummy." Now she grabs him and starts patting him, saying, "Let's hear that burp so you can go to sleep." He's shocked by this, wondering how old he is. Now after babysitting him, she leaves, and Cain is happy that he got a lot of answers out of her. The next day, we see Cain sitting at the dining table. We get to know that he's Cain Slyford and he's 3 years old. His father is Graham, and his mother is Sarah, and his sister Rena is 2 years older than him. Sarah is the second wife of his father. The first is Maria, with 2 sons Jin and Alec. Graham is a high-ranking noble, a margrave who has his own army. He's the one who protects the border against foreign invaders. Later, Sylvia tells him more about the kingdom of Esfort where they live. His father oversees the south of Gracia. She further tells him that people in this kingdom use magic and swords to fight monsters. Cain is amazed by this. He says, "I also want to learn magic." Sylvia says, "First, you will have to learn how to write." He looks at the magic book and thinks, "I made up my mind to live out my life here because in the previous world I had no family, and I lived alone." The next day his dad is amazed as his sister tells him he learned writing so soon and can do math already. His mother says, "Our little boy might just be a genius." But in Cain's mind, he already knows his tiny body has the mind of a high schooler. He says, "Sylvia is good at teaching," which makes her blush. His father then asks, "Why did you suddenly decide to learn? Did you have a divine revelation?" He's astonished by this. Sylvia gets worried and feeds him some milk thinking he might be hungry. He cries out, "I'm not hungry, I'm just trying my best to learn about this world." His father says, "How very admirable." He excitedly says to his father, "Please allow me to learn magic." His mother replies, "Cain, you are too young for that." His sister says, "You need to be baptized like me first, then only you can learn magic." He asks, "What is baptized?" His father replies, "You will learn about it when you turn 5 years old." But the next day he creates fire by magic, and hides it when Sylvia checks. He again creates fire but is unable to control it now. Sylvia comes to check again, but he hides it again. Suddenly, his sister appears, freaking him out. When did she come? She makes a creepy face saying, "I know all about how you've been studying the outside world in secret. Want me to teach you about it?" This freaks him out, but he's relieved she didn't see him using magic. So from the next day, she starts teaching her brother and teaches him the history of the kingdom. How an adventurer named Yuya built this kingdom. She also tells him there are elves, dwarfs, and beast folk in this world. And there are fluffy things too, and Cain imagines to enjoy it. Cain draws a picture of his kingdom. "I can't wait 2 more years until my baptism." Now 2 years have passed. Cain is now 5 years old, and he comes down from the stairs as his father and mother are waiting for him. His sister says, "Cain looks so cute." And his mom says, "He looks handsome." His sister hugs him, saying, "Now you can be baptized. I know you were looking forward to it for so long." His father says, "Okay, so let's go," and they follow his lead. They all move out in their cart for his baptism process, and the kingdom people all are looking at them. Cain is so happy because this is the first time he's going out. He then asks his sister, what is magic status? She says, I'll show you, as she opens her status, which shows her magic abilities and level. But then he reads a door of Cain and blushes, saying, what does it mean? His sister snatches it and asks, did you see that? He says, no. His mother then says, Riani is granted level 2 protection by the god of magic. He asks what is protection. His father explains, magic and protection are attainable from level 1 through 5. His mother says, magic is a skill you'll develop, and protection will be provided by the god. They then arrive, and Cain enters with excitement. This place is dedicated to the worship of the 7 pillar gods. They walk forward, and he sits down, saying, so, this is my baptism. A priest begins the baptism process. He says, devote your life in service to the gods. And Cain says, I will. The priest then faces towards the god and says, show this child the path that he's to walk. Suddenly, he hears a voice, and a bright light appears, amazing them all. In the next second, we see all the gods sitting around a round table, and Cain cries out, where am I? The head of the god tells him, this is the world of the gods where 7 gods reside. He cries out, nobody told me that the gods themselves show up for baptism, and the head of God laughs. He then introduces himself as Zenom, the god of creation. Cain thinks, this is a god. I thought he's a weird old dude in a costume. Zenom teleports closer to him, saying, I can listen to your thoughts. Next, Rime, the god of death and rebirth, tells him, your death was unexpected. You were protecting 2 girls, right? But even if you had not done it, the robber was going to trip and fall and be restrained by passersby. He gets distressed by knowing that he died for nothing. She comes closer to him, saying, that's true, which overwhelms him. She then says, since you died doing a good deed, the god of earth requested that I incarnate you in this world. But even though I blocked your memories, for some reason, you recalled them at the age of 3. I'm sorry. He replies, don't apologize. Since my memories came back, I was able to learn to write and use magic. And best of all, I live a happy life with my family. Thank you for that. Reno, the god of magic, is impressed by him and says, I'll grant you my protection. Sanos, the god of war, also grants him protection, showing him his muscles and saying, become strong like me, remember to work on sword and martial arts skills. Zenom, the creator god, also grants him protection. The god of technology, the god of commerce, and the god of earth also grant protection. He thanks everyone, and Zenom says, good luck for your new life, and then starts laughing. Now we see Cain's sister calling his name. The priest says, I've never seen statues of gods shine with such brilliance. His father says, that means he received a lot of protection. He asks him to show his status. Cain recalls the god's laugh and thinks, I have a bad feeling about this. Then he tells everyone, my stomach hurts, and runs from there. He hides in a corner and gets shocked to see his status. He gets the 10th level of protection from each god, and his father told him level 5 is the highest. He recalls, that's why the old god was laughing. He says, I can't let anyone see this. He checks and finds out to hide it as the god tells him to use status conceal to hide it. In the next scene, we see Cain sitting at the dinner table with his family. They celebrate his 5th birthday, and his father then asks him to show his status. As he shows his status, his father is completely amazed by this. He gets protection from all 7 gods. Cain realizes he didn't fix it. His level is 5. His father further says, no matter what job you choose, you'll be guaranteed success. His sister hugs him, saying, amazing. And his father says, it's more than amazing. We can't show this to anyone, it's promising, but it could also be seen as a threat to the kingdom. He even tells his servants not to tell anyone. At night, Cain jumps on his bed, saying, I finally got baptized. Then he holds a book lying there, it's on summoning magic. He walks out to summon the Fluffy to cuddle them, but as he uses the magic to summon a Fluffy, a monster appears instead. His sister and Perma are also there, and they get scared. He tells both of them to run and realizes the same thing like this happened in the previous life. He runs toward the monster, saying, time to show some backbone. He uses his fire magic to defeat the monster, but it seems to be weak. He recalls protecting the girls and says, I will protect these 2 also. He then uses the magic to return the monster back, and it vanishes, then falls to the ground. His sister and the cat-eared girl Perma come towards him. He looks at her and wants to touch them, but he feels like he's going to die again like last time, and both girls are crying. But in the next moment, he gets up, he's totally fine. The girls hug him. His sister says, I'll get father, but he stops her, saying, I'm fine. She hugs him again, saying, I'm glad you are fine. His sister smiles, and Cain recalls unlike that time, the girls are smiling. He realizes he can help people in this world. The next day, Cain meets the kingdom people and talks with them about his 5th birthday. His father says, since you are my third son, you can't inherit this estate. So what would you like to be in the future? He says, I want to go to different kinds of places. I want to learn lots of things and help people and want to meet different people. I want to be an adventurer. Next day at the dining table, Cain's father told him, I'll arrange a tutor for you to learn things. He excitedly says, thank you, father. Sylvia says, it's good for you, master. Later, Cain thinks, will my tutor gonna be ripped or more like a witch? Suddenly, he hears a voice and goes to the window, trying to move down through magic but fails and falls down. He falls on a woman's chest and then gets away, saying, sorry. The servant says, these are your tutors, Millie and Nina. Cain introduces himself to them as Cain Silford, but in truth, he's reincarnated in this world as Nobel. And for some reason, gods gave him level 10 protection, but he's keeping his status concealed. Afterwards, Millie introduces herself, and when it's Nina's turn, Millie tells her not to be rude with nobles. Cain is amazed to see that Nina is an elf. She then says sorry, Nina is a bit shy type. Graham tells them, do take good care of Cain, you're gonna teach him for 3 years. Millie tells Cain, let's get along, we gonna start right away. They head to the field, and Millie tells him, we'll start with swinging practice. Cain starts doing it very well. Seeing this, Millie says, if you can do all that, we can have a mock battle. They both start fighting with each other. Cain is able to fight well, so Millie asks Cain, are you really 5 years old? He says, yes. The girls say, unbelievable. Nina asks Cain, do you get protection from the god of war? And while fighting with Millie, he replies, yes, but my father told not to tell anyone outside the family. Millie then stops and says, I'll never last if we keep up this pace, I'm already exhausted. Now, Nina will teach you magic. Nina says, I have level 3 protection from the god of magic. Let's start with basic magic. He says, I have already learned it from books, and starts showing his basic magic skills. When he throws rock bullets, it amazes Nina. She contemplates, a 5-year-old can use that magic, that means he's a genius. She asks Cain, you get protection from the god of magic also? He says, yes, from all gods. The women are in cold sweat. Cain offers them a towel, but they freak out instead, as he even has an item box. Nina says, you are a genius, we can't teach you here anymore. This place won't last against your power. He replies, then teach me outside. I've actually never left the mansion, except for a baptism. They say, for that, we'll need to convince your father first. They go to meet his father and tell him that Cain has already surpassed the beginner level. If they teach him intermediate level, he might destroy the mansion. His father is amazed by this, and his mother compliments, you are amazing, Cain. His father says, okay, I will let you go out to train, but be careful. Cain agrees. Afterwards, he walks out of the mansion and is excited to see the outside world. As they reach far away, Millie says, Nina, let's start the training. Nina tells him to try intermediate magic to destroy stone. He uses the magic to create a firewall and creates a big hole there. He says, sorry, I went overboard. Millie replies, it's beyond intermediate. They are amazed and say he has an insane amount of magic, and he laughs. Suddenly, they feel that something is coming. A killer rabbit appears from the bushes. Millie and Nina are ready with their weapons, but it dodges Millie's attack and goes to attack Cain. But Cain dodges it and fires a killer bullet at it, making it die instantly. Millie congratulates him for his first kill, and he transfers it into the item box, saying, I'll show it to mother and sister. Millie then says, why don't we hunt more? And tells Nina to search for monsters. She uses her magical powers to search for them and then points in the direction of the monsters. Cain asks, how did you use that magic, Master Nina? She says, I just spread my own magic out in a thin layer. He tries the same and finds out the monster. He runs to hunt them. Nina is amazed, and Millie says, I know what you are thinking. He destroys one with a fireball, and the girls also help him to fight. He then uses an air bullet on another, the monster runs away, and he follows it. But the girls stop him, saying, don't go that way, they're live strong, dangerous monsters. Once every few decades, they stage an outbreak on the city. That's why the city wall is so well fortified to protect people. He says, I'll become strong and defeat them one day. Later, while in his room, he checks his status and is amazed to see that he has leveled up 100 times just by beating killer rabbits. The gods laugh to see his reaction as he says, if people find out about this, I'll be hunted and executed, you stupid gods. The next day, he sees his masters walking towards the guild, and they tell him, let's collect more info on monsters. This makes him so excited that his eyes sparkle. He looks inside and says, oh, so the guild looks like this, and then enters. Millie talks with the receptionist named Ruddy, who has dog ears, which seems cute to Cain. As Millie is talking with her, she spots Cain and asks, "Who's this?" Nina replies, "He's the son of the domain lord," and she bows to him and welcomes him. He replies, "I'm Cain, I'll be an adventurer soon," and she wags her tail saying, "You are so polite." Just then, a C-rank adventurer approaches and asks, "Is babysitting the only thing left for D-rank like you?" He says, "Ditch the kid and pour me some drinks." Nina coldly says, "We are on duty right now." He gets enraged and grabs her, while others grab Millie. He tries to touch her, but Cain stops him and says, "Can you leave my masters? I have to train." He then attacks him with one hand, making him fall to the ground. He says, "Kid, I'll teach you a lesson," and attacks, but Cain knocks him down. He asks, "Who are you?" And Cain replies, "I'm Cain." He tries to attack Cain again, who dodges and kicks his leg. The man draws his blade, which shocks Cain's masters. He attacks Cain, but Cain dodges and then starts dodging all his attacks. He finally stops the man by his hands and throws him out. The other two men are scared of him. They put the knife on Millie, which angers Cain, and he throws them out too. Nina comes and hugs him, saying, "Thanks for protecting us." Millie praises him, and he says, "I learned most things from books." She says, "Now let's head to the forest for training." There, he shows them his magic skills again, shocking them both. It's amazing. Later, they eat something, and Nina uses magic to give him a drink for strength. After training, Sylvia brings his clothes, and he thanks her. As he wears them, Sylvia tells him, "Your tutors just declined to extend the duration of their contract. They were in their year contract to teach you." He tells Sylvia, "I wonder if there's any way I can thank them. They've been so good to me these past 3 years." So he teleports to the forest. He's thinking of making magic bags for his masters using monsters. He first defeats a blood orge and collects it inside the item box. A soldier spots the fire from far away. He then goes to an earth dragon and defeats it using fire magic. Seeing this a second time, the soldier thinks it's a monster outbreak. He rings the bell, and all the soldiers head towards that direction. People pray, "Oh God, save us." Cain's father is leading the army. Meanwhile, Cain's work is done. He leaves behind his handkerchief. While his father is leading towards that direction with full force, as they reach there, they are shocked to see a crater. One of his men says, "There is no sign of a monster." As he wonders who did this, he spots the handkerchief and realizes it's his son who did this. The next day, Cain defeats all the monsters at once. Millie says, "I can't believe Cain is still only 8 years old and far stronger than us." He calls them, "I'm done." They approach him, saying, "Cain, this is your graduation. You have done very well these past 3 years. He thanks both of them and gifts them magic bags. They look at them and ask, "How did you make them?" He says, "From a blood orge and an earth dragon," shocking them both. As a full party of rank adventurers can barely take down such strong monsters, he says, "These magic bags can barely fit a mansion." Millie freaks out, saying, "I was thinking to buy a magic bag that would only hold about 2 carriages. To buy this level of magic bag needs a lot of money." This shocks Cain as they say, "A magic bag of this class is definitely a national treasure." He says, "I blew it," but they both seem happy to have this gift. They thank him, but he says, "I am grateful to have had masters like you in the past 3 years," and they both kiss him. This makes him blush. They tell him, "See ya, Cain, if you ever need us, we will be there for you," and Cain says, "Thank you for being the best masters," and then they leave. In the next scene, we see Cain fighting with a dragon. He attacks it with his sword, and the monster falls instantly. Checking it, he says, "I beat it." He then checks his status and gets shocked, saying, "Crap, I overdid it." His magic level is now 80 million, and he earns the alias Dragon Killer. 2 years have passed. Cain heads to the royal capital for his debut, a mandatory event for all noble sons. His father says, "You are now 10 years old, you have 2 more years to start school." His sister hugs him, saying, "Grow soon so you can attend school." Cain then asks his father how long it will take to reach the capital. His father replies, 1 week, assuming no monsters get in the way. Cain searches the surrounding area and tells his father a few dozen monsters are swarming about 10 people. His father orders his guards to help the people. Cain says, "They won't make it in time, I'll go too." He jumps out and, with his wind magic, heads in that direction swiftly. His father cries out, "Cain, stop," but his sister waves saying, "Cain, take care." The scene shifts to the area where monsters are fighting knights. A knight orders, "Protect this carriage no matter what," as a monster approaches to attack him. Just then, Cain appears and cuts the monster. He then moves forward, defeating the monsters with air bullets and cutting the biggest one with an air cutter. He sees 2 monsters about to attack a knight, so he takes out his sword and runs to slay them. Now, one last monster remains which moves to attack Cain, but he uses his fire sword to cut it in half. He then asks the knights if they are fine and introduces himself as Garm von Silford's 3rd son. Just then, the guards sent by his father earlier also arrive, amazed that Cain reached before them. A knight falls due to injuries. Cain approaches him and says, "I'll heal you using healing magic." The injuries of all the knights heal. For those already dead, he stores them in his item box. Just then, his father arrives, stepping out and remarking, "Seems like Cain already handled the situation." He notices a royal symbol and exclaims, "Oh, it's a crest." Two girls emerge from the crest, Princess Telestia and Miss Silk. Garm expresses his relief at seeing them safe. Cain is amazed to see the princess and the duke's daughter. They thank Garm for saving them, but he insists it was his son who rescued them. Cain adds, "I'm glad you're both safe." Telestia feels a bit woozy, so Cain uses his relax magic to make the girls feel better. They feel so good, as if they are bouncing in a soft flower bed. Telestia approaches him and says thanks, while Silk holds his hand, saying, "I saw you fighting, you are great, Cain-sama." They both start fighting over him, saying, "Cain is mine." Silk then says, "We also have our debut in the kingdom. Please travel with us," and they take him with them. Inside the carriage, Cain feels cramped despite its size. He asks if he can sit there, and Telestia holds his hand, saying, "I'm still scared," while Silk says, "No fair, me too." Telestia asks him to call her Teles, but he hesitates, saying he can't call a princess by her name. Silk, the duke's daughter, insists he calls her Silk. Cain points out they just met today, but their cute faces make it hard for him to refuse. They both draw closer to him, making him blush. Just then, a soldier appears and informs them that they are approaching the town of Renoma. The girls suggest resting when they arrive and hold Cain with smiles. As they reach the destination, servant opens the door, but Cain says he'll meet them in the morning. However, the girls refuse to let him go. His father appears and tells them that it's inappropriate for girls and a boy to be in the same room. Silk counters, "What if a monster like a dragon attacks us at night?" Telestia adds, "Cain is the strongest one here, isn't he?" His father reluctantly agrees, but Cain gets confused about what to do. He finally agrees as long as the room is very big. His father reminds him that he's only 10 years old, to which Cain agrees. However, when they enter the room, the beds are too close and Cain has to sleep in the middle. Silk says she will move her bed closer to him, and Telestia does the same. Cain realizes they will be sleeping side by side like a tight-knit family, and both girls are happy beside him. He suggests putting the beds back where they were, but Silk and Telestia insist due to fear of monsters and the night being scary. They ask if he can't sleep with them so close, making him blush, and he finally agrees to sleep together. But he's really anxious while sleeping between them. After a few days, they head to the kingdom, but Cain's eyes are all puffy because he spent his days without sleep in that position. Now they finally arrive at the royal capital. The girls head out of the carriage. A warrior comes and says, "I'm relieved to see you safe." He asks, "Why are you holding his arm?" Cain frees himself, saying, "It's not what it looks like." Silk says, "We were holding him to feel safe," and Telestia says, "Right." The warrior introduces himself as Dame, the vice captain of the Royal Chivalric Order, and thanks Cain for everything as knights told him everything Cain did. Afterwards, Cain releases the bodies of the fallen soldiers from the item box and Dame thanks Cain for bringing them back. As Cain tries to leave, Dame stops him, saying the king wants to meet him. Cain is shocked and wonders what the king needs. He walks forward, bows down, and then raises his head on the king's order. The Weissman of the king tells everything about Cain's bravery, how he defeated monsters and saved the girls. The noblemen are amazed at how a 10-year-old boy could do all this. The king praises him, grants him the position of baron, and gives him 10 platinum coins and his own mansion. The nobles express surprise at a 10-year-old receiving all this. One noble approaches the king, protesting that granting peerage to a 10-year-old is unthinkable. The king shuts him down, asking if he could have fought those monsters alone, to which the noble stammers and retreats. King asks Cain, "Do you accept this?" Cain replies, "I accept it with gratitude." The king gets up and says, "Good, come to the parlor next." Next, a servant serves tea to them at the parlor. His father gladly says, "You are promoted so fast." Just then, the king appears to meet them. The girl says hi, but Cain refrains from waving back in this situation. The king bows to thank Cain for saving Telestia. Duke introduces himself as Silk's father, Eric von Malbeek, and he also bows to thank Cain for saving his daughter. Cain politely asks them to raise their heads. The king then says, "There is something important we must discuss." Cain wonders what it is. The king suggests Cain take the hands of Telestia and Duke wants the same for Silk. This shocks Cain as it's too early for him, but the girls seem so happy. He explains they can get engaged for now until they become adults, as no one else will take them as brides after Cain linked arms with them and slept with 2 unmarried ladies. Cain explains it was not done intentionally, but they ask if he's unsatisfied with their daughters. Now we see a flashback when the king discusses Cain with his noblemen, and the girls express their desire to marry him, making the king realize Cain's significance. Back to the present, the king asks if Cain will take their responsibility. Cain looks towards his dad for help, but his dad turns his face away. Left with no other choice, Kane accepts the proposal. The girls seem happy, saying they can't forget the night they slept with Kane, shocking the king and duke. Kane tries to explain it was just the bed positions, but they yell at him, saying he should show some discretion, and he apologizes. In the next scene, we see Kane standing outside the off-chart mansion. Its condition is really bad. Kane opens it with force. He walks towards it and opens the door. He enters the hall, lights are out, so he creates a light ball to move forward. He checks the living room, there is nothing there. Then he goes to the kitchen, which is very dusty. He then touches the railing and says it's too dusty, so he uses his magic to clean and repair everything. And in the next second, everything looks clean and nice. He then starts cleaning every room one by one with magic, and then finally rests on the bed, saying, "This is going to be my house." Just then, he hears Sylvia calling him. He walks out and comes down from the stairs and says, "I appreciate you coming here." Sylvia says, "I'll work my hardest with all maids here." His new butler, Colin, also introduces himself. Sylvia then tells the maids to start cleaning the mansion. But as they check, they find no dust. Kane replies, "I cleaned everything with magic." Sylvia then walks away, saying, "Okay, we will do other works now." Kane says, "I appreciate your help." Just then, Colin tells him, "We will take care of here, you should return to Lord Garm's mansion now." Kane says, "Oh, I forgot today my older brothers will come home." He then goes to meet his brothers, who praise him for getting peerage and mansion before them. "We are really proud of you, Kane." Rhiannon says, "I'm excited to see Kane's mansion." Her brother scares her, saying, "I heard it's quite a run-down mansion. Scary things might show up." She says, "I'll be fine, Kane will protect me." Now they head towards the mansion. As they walk inside, Rhiannon is amazed to see that it's not run down at all. Her mother says, "It looks like a brand new house." His father asks Kane, "Did you do something?" Kane says, "I did a little cleaning with magic." His mother happily says, "That's my son for you." They first check the kitchen, it looks so nice. Then the living room, it's so beautiful. As they were exploring the library, his father says there is no work of art, though nobles are fond of artwork like paintings, armor, and mounted monsters. Kane says, "Mounted monster, all right," and leaves. He comes back and says, "I put up one." Just then, they hear Sylvia's scream and run towards her. All the servants are scared of the red monster, it looks so scary. Kane asks, "What happened?" Sylvia points to the dragon and screams. Kane realizes he forgot to explain it to them. His father asks, "Why is it here?" Kane explains, "I defeated this dragon when I went into the forests." His father says, "A dragon is a calamity-class monster. Even a rank adventurers can barely take it down." Kane says, "Really?" Garm says, "Explain to the maids before something like this happens again." Colin says. He explains and tells them a mounted dragon is worth 1,000 platinum coins. Kane calculates it and gets shocked. It means it's almost 10 billion yen. Just then, they hear ladies scream. As they reach there, the ladies ask, "What is this toilet? It shoots water at you." Kane replies, "I used magic to make it shoot water out." They say, "It's amazing." Garm says, "You two are too dramatic over a toilet." But when he goes to check, he seems to enjoy it. He comes out and says, "What is that? It feels so good." The ladies talk, he likes it. He tells Kane, "Visitors you invite here will be pleased with this as well. Nobles who come into ownership of the mansion must host a party to debut it." Kane screams out, "What, another debut party?" At night, while checking the list of people for the party, Kane asks, "Do I have to invite Marquis Coringo? I don't get along with him." Colin says, "Yes, he's a high-ranking noble." Then he sees the things he will have to offer nobles, and he gets annoyed. Sylvia says, "Instead of adhering to formalities, why don't you give them your brand of hospitality?" Kane says, "Really?" And Sylvia replies, "Yes," and he smiles. Later, he creates a glass with magic, and Sylvia says, "How lovely." Kane says, "I'll show my hospitality with glasses. I hope everyone will like it." He then creates more with magic. Next, in the kitchen, the cook tells him, "I followed the recipe you gave me to prepare food, and it's ready." Sylvia comes saying, "You called Kane-sama." He says, "I'd like you to taste the food I'll be serving." Sylvia tastes the food and says, "It's so delicious." Kane says, "It's called a Hamburg steak." She is delighted by its taste. Now she tastes the drinks and says, "It's so fizzy and bubbly." Kane says, "I can't drink alcohol yet, so tell me about it properly." She drinks the whole glass and says, "I can't tell. I need another glass," and starts drinking one after another. Just then, Colin comes and tells him that the king called you. Next, we see Kane sitting in front of the king. The king asks him, "Why haven't I received an invitation to your mansion's debut party?" Eric brags about the invitation, saying, "Only higher-ranking nobles can invite you to their mansion." The king says to Cain, "But I am your future father, how can you forget me?" Cain says, "The truth is I planned to give you an invitation in person, but I was delayed while waiting for the right opportunity." King takes it and shows it to Eric, saying, "See, I got one too." He then says, "I will bring Telestia." Duke says, "I'll bring Silk." Later in his mansion, he tells everyone that the king will also attend the party, and the maids get shocked. He tells about Telestia and Silk, who will also come, and the maids are amazed to know that they are his fiancées. Sylvia says, "Let's welcome them with all we have." Cain says, "I'm counting on you," and they say, "We will do our best." At the party night, Cain and his father welcome everyone. The Duke appears with Silk. Silk looks so beautiful, he says, "Let me take you inside." As they enter inside, they are amazed to see a giant dragon. Silk says, "Wow, I'll be living here one day." Now the party starts. Cain thanks everyone for coming with a glass of drink. As they take the sip, they say, "It's so yummy." Eric praises the glass, saying, "It shines so brightly." Cain says, "The glasses are my gifts for all attendees." Eric says, "I appreciate it. Look over there, only 10 years old, and you've grasped the ladies by their stomach," and Cain blushes. Just then, the king appears with his family. He walks ahead, and as he sits, he is amazed to see the beauty of the glass. As he takes the sips, he's so delighted, saying, "It's so fizzy." When he tastes the hamburger, he says, "It plays an exquisite harmony in my mouth." He then asks his daughter, and she says, "It's delicious." The queen comes and asks, "What is that water sprouted from the toilet?" So King checks it and comes out asking, "Why didn't you tell me sooner that you had such a fine thing? Put it in my palace too." King then says, "It's the ultimate hospitality," and everyone starts clapping. Cain feels so happy that he did all this. Colin appears and tells him to come out to welcome the Marquis, who arrives a bit late. He makes fun of Cain's mansion, calling it a doghouse, and enters. As the Marquis enters, he freaks out to see the dragon. Cain tells him it's just a mounted monster. As he walks in, other nobles talk about his attitude for someone who showed up after the king. He sits, and Sylvia serves him a drink, and as he drinks it, he feels so delighted. Cain asks, "Do you like it?" He replies, "No." When he eats the hamburger, it tastes yummy, but he says it's disgusting. Everyone watches him as he asks for sauce and puts it on the food. Cain gets enraged, but Colin tells him to remain firm. He then offers the glasses to the Marquis as a token of thanks for being here, but he demands more. Cain says, "I can't grant such a request." He detects something and says, "But I can offer you the kingdom's biggest." Marquis asks, "You mean the kingdom's biggest jewel?" He detects again, saying, "Yes, yes, please accept the kingdom's biggest," and moves. It's the king whom he was detecting. The Marquis is shocked to see the king there. He bows and asks, "What are you doing in the home of a low-ranking noble?" Eric asks, "What kind of behavior is this? You arrived after the king." He apologizes for that. The king scolds him for his behavior with Cain as well. He bows to the king, apologizing, and leaves. Silk approaches him and says, "Cain, I saw you, you're such a trickster." He says, "I think I used the biggest weight in the kingdom well." The king listens to this and says, "You mean me. Now feel the weight," while others laugh. In the next scene, we see Cain come to meet Vice Captain Dame. He tells Dame that Prime Minister Magna advised me to leave some monster material here. Dame takes him to a place and tells him, "You can leave them here." Cain says, "But this room is too small for that." Dame shockingly asks, "Is it something like the red dragon in your mansion?" Cain replies, "Not that impressive, but just an earth dragon." Dame freaks out, saying, "A whole party of rank adventurers can barely take down an earth dragon." He then tells him to leave it in the field. Cain takes them out from the item box, and Dame is amazed to see there is not a single one but so many of the strongest dragons. He says, "Cain, you defeated them all by yourself. Are you a hero or a disciple of God?" Cain says, No, I am just the son of Margrave," and then says, "Okay, now I may leave." But Dame stops him, saying, "Mind helping out with the knight's training? I'd like you to meet our captain too." And Cain has to accept unwillingly. Dame takes him to introduce the knights, telling them he's Baron Cain, who annihilated 30 monsters and saved the princess. Cain says, "Nice to meet you," and asks, "Where is the captain?" Dame replies, "As soon as the mock battle begins, I'll bet the captain will be here. Our captain loves a good battle." Cain freaks out, saying, "It's going to be someone super scary." Dame says, "Don't worry, the captain won't eat you." Okay, then the battle begins. One of the knights objects, asking, "He's only 10, right? How can we fight a child?" Dame says, "If you're worried, you can go first." In the next moment, we see the knight standing against Cain. They are going to have a one-on-one fight. The knight says, I'll grant you the first move. Cain uses the boost, and with full speed, he reaches the knight and defeats him by breaking his sword at once. The knight falls down, and Cain thinks, I defeated him easily. As he tries to leave, Dame stops him, saying, now fight 30 knights at once. In the next moment, he is standing against 30 knights who are about to attack him. When someone stops them saying, hold it, she jumps down, asking, what's going on here? She asks Dame, why are all the knights pointing swords at a child? She then hugs Cain saying, they might have frightened you, no worries, I am here now. She asks Dame, why didn't you stop the knights? He says, this is Baron Cain who defeated 30 monsters alone. She says, I see, she smirks, so you are that hero, Cain. She takes out her sword saying, in that case, fight a duel with me. All the knights leave the field for them. She then excitedly says, let's duel, and Cain replies, I only have a wooden sword as a weapon. She says, I have dulled my blade, and starts. She jumps back, saying, I am gonna enjoy this. She boosts herself and runs towards Cain with full speed. They both start fighting with each other. Knights are amazed and say, Cain is giving the captain a run for her money. Dame says, unbelievable to see Cain fighting so skillfully. Their swords meet and get locked, so both fall back. Cain uses clock up and runs towards her with speed. She attacks, but he dodges. And when she looks back, Cain's sword is already on her neck. He says, this duel is over, Captain. She replies, I've decided. Cain is confused. She stands up and turns, completing the sentence, I am going to marry you, and hugs him. Everyone is shocked to hear this. Cain says, stop it, I'm just 10 years old. She says, you need not worry about age. I'm an elf, I'll live at least 300 years. I will remain beautiful for long. He says, that's not an issue. He runs and hides behind Dame and says, still, I can't marry you. I have to consult my father and lots of other people. He tells Vice Captain to explain, but he's already asleep. She says, all right, I know what I have to do. She moves forward and tells Dame that she'll go and talk to the king about this. Cain is totally scared, saying, letting the king hear about this is the last thing I need. Tijuana tells Dame to bring Cain also. He drags Cain with him. Next, we see Tijuana and Cain sitting in front of the king. King asks, what's the matter? Tijuana gets up and says, I have decided that I am gonna marry Cain. King and Garm get shocked, and the king asks him to explain. Cain tells, I had a duel with her and won, and it led to this. King asks, haven't you told her about Telestia and Silk? He says, not yet, as that matter was supposed to be confidential. His father then says, Cain, do you realize the position Captain Tijuana holds? Cain says, no, only that she's the captain of the knights. He tells her she originally comes from the elf nation. Elves are beautiful, so they have always been kidnapped and enslaved. But our first king, Yuya, took their nation under the protection of our nation. That means Tijuana is also a princess. King tells Tijuana that Cain is already engaged to Telestia and Silk. She says, that means Cain is extraordinary enough to have been recognized by you. I understand. The king says, I'm glad you understand, and feels sad for her but gets shocked to see her getting more excited to marry Cain after knowing this. The king says, all right, I acknowledge your feelings, but you need to inform your father. He says, okay, I'll go and write a letter to him. She tells Cain, let's go to the battle arena to further deepen our love, and write the letter, and takes him away with her. After they leave, the king says, I have doubts about Cain. How could he be so powerful? Dame replies, when I asked him if he's a disciple of God, he'd react for a brief moment. Magna tells the king, I know how to find his true identity. Later, we see Cain seems to be exhausted when Dame calls him and asks about his exhaustion. Cain says, after meeting Tijuana, she never lets me go until my endurance has reached its limit. He replies, well, because of this, she has become even stronger. Just then, Cain hears her voice and tries to run, but Dame again stops him and takes him to the king. The king tells him, I have called you here because I want to show you something. He tells Magna to give Cain a magic book, saying, this is a high-level magic book I want to gift you. Cain excitedly takes it and says, thank you. He opens it and starts reading it. Just then, he hears the king saying, I thought so. He asks, what is it? The king replies, that text in the book is one that none of us can read. Cain looks back at it and freaks out. What? The king says, it was written by our first king in Japanese. Cain recalls, oh right, the first king was Japanese, probably reincarnated here like me. The king asks Cain, tell us, who are you? Cain thinks, I can't hide anymore, and then says, okay, I'll tell the truth. But promise me that only those present right now will ever know. The king says, very well. Cain says, I have memories of a previous life, memories of a different land from where your first king came from. That nation is called Japan. Everyone is shocked. His father asks Cain, are you truly my son? He says, yes, there is no doubt about that. The gods told me so when I was baptized, Cain reveals, stunning everyone. The king asks, you met gods? Cain responds, yes, I often meet with the 7 gods when I go to church. His father says, can you show us your status? Cain agrees and shows his status to everyone. They are all shocked to see his inhuman status. The king sits down and asks, why didn't you tell us earlier? In addition to me, every single person of this world must bow to you. Cain says, that's not what I want. When I reincarnated in this world, I understood nothing. But my family and others were kind to me. The experiences I've had using magic and fighting monsters on my adventures were exciting. Meeting Telestia, Silk, and all of you, and being named a Baron, an honor far greater than I deserve. With teary eyes, he continues, in my previous life, I lost my family, I was all alone. But now I have you all. His father gets emotional. Cain says, I am sorry for hiding all this from you all. The king says, this kingdom recognizes you as Garm's son. However, Cain, you should be king instead. Cain freaks out, and everyone shockingly says, what? Just then, the captain appears and says, I found you, my husband. She shows a letter from her father, saying he granted me permission to marry Cain and dreams of their marriage. Then she takes him away with her, and they start their duel again. Eric tells the king, maybe we shouldn't worry about Cain now, and the king says, yes, right. And then he says, no one is permitted to speak about Cain's matter outside this chamber. The king leaves, thinking, I know in the presence of Cain, I need not worry, he will protect everyone in the kingdom. Meanwhile, Cain is dueling with the captain. In the next scene, we see Cain reading the book written by the first king in Japanese. It reads, if you are reading this book, it means you also came here from Japan. My name is Yuya Hirasawa Esfort. I was involved in an accident in Japan and thought I had died. But I was reincarnated to this world. Just then, Telestia and Silk appear and ask, are you studying for the academy entrance exams? Maybe we'll study with you. But Cain says, sorry, I have some work. They says, let's hang out tomorrow. He says, sorry, some other day, and then runs away. But just when he comes out, Tijuana comes running, saying, let's have a mock battle tomorrow. He thinks for a moment and says, sorry, some other time, and runs away. The next day, we see him in a new outfit. It's his 12th birthday, and it's the day he finally gets to register as an adventurer. That's why he refused to hang out with the ladies. He enters inside the guild, and as he is walking inside, he bumps into a man. The man asks, what's up, kid? First time here. He replies, yes, I've finally turned 12. I'm here to register as an adventurer. The man puts his hand on his head and says, good luck, and walks away. Cain wonders if he has seen this man before. He then goes to the receptionist. She asks, you're here to register as an adventurer, right? And gives him a registration form. He fills out the form and then asks, does it look okay? She says, yes, it looks good. Now he has to drop a blood crystal. And as he does, it shines and a card comes out of it, which is his guild card. The receptionist gives it to him, saying, you'll start at G rank. As he takes it, he remembers his masters were D rank. The receptionist then says, I'm Resha. If you have any questions, just ask me. He replies, thank you, and she says, good luck, Cain. Just then, some guys come and say, ditch that brat and come hang out with us, Rita, and start laughing. Cain feels annoyed. One man says, move aside, boy, and tries to kick him, but Cain dodges so fast. Another man tries to punch him, but he dodges again. The third man says, I will not leave you. The first one says, get him. And they both run to attack him but end up bumping into each other. The first man is about to draw out his sword, but Cain says, stop it. Just then, the red-haired guy from earlier comes. The man says, guy from Ice Flame. The red guy says, if you want to fight, I'll fight with you. The man gets scared, and they all run away from there. Cain thanks the red guy for his help. The guy says, don't worry, I stopped him to not get beaten by you. You seem pretty strong. I like you. Join me for a drink. The red guy gives him juice since he's still a kid. He says, you seem pretty trained. Cain replies, I had tutors who were adventurers and trained me well. The guy is amazed but then says, nah, couldn't be, never mind. Let's cheers, and then they both drink. Cain asks, by the way, that guy earlier said you're with Ice Flame. He replies, Ice Flame is my party name. I use Flame Sword, and my wife uses Ice Magic. Cain says, wow, that's amazing. He says, if you have trustworthy people in your party, you can take big quests like this, showing his gold card. Cain says, that card means you are on a rank adventurer, right? He replies, I am still far away from our first king, who is SSS rank. Cain asks, SSS rank. He replies, yes, the strongest one, and I hear SSS rank card is black. Just then, someone hits him. It's a woman who scolds him, why are you drinking again? He tells Cain, she's my wife, Lena, and she hits him again, saying, answer me. She then looks at Cain and asks, who's this cutie? Cain introduces himself and tells her that Claude saved him from some guys. She says, there are a lot of nasty folks here. If anything happens, you tell me, okay. Cain replies, okay, thank you. I will. Claude says, Lena, Cain is already very strong. He then sips the drink, but Lena gets angry and holds him by his ears and takes him away, saying, let's go, we have a quest. Cain then looks for a quest for himself. Cargo transport and cleaning are mainly quests for G ranks. He doesn't want to do them because it's just a piece of cake. He wants to defeat monsters, and just then he sees a quest of getting rid of goblins. The thought of defeating them excites him. He says, this is gonna be my first quest, and runs out to complete it. Just then, Tijuana comes running and hugs him. He says, leave me, I have to go for the quest. She says, I will come with you, and he gets shocked. Dame says, but you have training, and she says, I'll go with my husband. Cain tries to run away, but she stops him and takes him, saying, let's go together. As they reach outside the forest, she says, it feels so good to spend time with my husband, and then enters holding his hand. She's so happy as they walk in. Cain searches for the goblins and tells her, I'm picking up signs of goblins straight ahead. She says, all right, and jumps ahead, saying, follow me, my dear husband. Now they reach a place where everything is scattered. Cain says, that means they are around. She says, look there. A man is surrounded by goblins who are about to attack him. Cain says, let's go, and they both run towards them. Cain heals the man. Tijuana says, these are high-ranked beasts. Leave them to me, and goes to attack them, slashing all of them one by one. More goblins come. Cain says, I will cover you with my magic, and uses his magic to cover her. The goblins are scared, and she is ready to attack them with Cain's cover. She runs to attack them with Cain in her mind and slashes many goblins at once. Then she moves forward to slash more, but then a beast goblin appears. She jumps up to attack him with Cain in her mind. She goes to cut the goblin, saying, time to cut cake, and kills it at once. Then she dreams again of marrying Cain one day and hugs him. Just then, the big monstrous lizards appear. The man behind them is scared by their roars. He tells Tijuana to take the man away. Cain then uses his light ball and ice pillar to annihilate them all at once. The man and Tijuana are amazed to see this. Later, Cain's childhood adventurer masters appear and are amazed to see the giant hole. They are here to kill the monster lizard. Nina leaves, saying nothing is here. Cain goes to the guild to report. He tells the receptionist that he killed some monster lizards too. She says if it's one lizard, D ranks can kill them, and C ranks if it's a group of lizards. Cain replies, I took about 30 of them. Rita gets shocked. She runs to her chief and tells him that a G-rank boy defeated 30 lizards. The chief says, bring him here. Now Cain is sitting with the chief, who says a G-rank kid can't defeat 30 monstrous lizards. Rita says it's wrong to accuse him of cheating without any evidence. Cain says, I'm not lying. The chief replies, I know you just want reward money. I'm revoking your guild card for lying. Rita says, Chief, that's an abuse of authority. He angrily throws away a book, saying cheating is never accepted. Cain gets depressed to know that they're revoking it. Just then, the guild master appears and asks what's going on. The chief tells him that this kid is a cheater. Then they sit together and the chief tells the guild master everything. The guild master starts laughing, which annoys the chief, and he asks, so you believe in this rotten little brat? The guild master then calls the woman inside. It's Tijuana, who jumps on Cain, calling him her husband, shocking everyone. Cain asks, what are you doing here? She said, I came to the guild before you and told them everything. The guild master says, you are Baron Cain, right? And the chief is shocked to hear this. The guild master says, yes, you hadn't heard. He's the one who saved the princess from the monster. The chief asks, so he's Baron Cain? The guild master responds, yes, and he's also the son of Margrave Garm. The chief freaks out. Master says, and if Cain married Tijuana, he'll be my brother-in-law. Cain freaks out, saying, you are her brother. He then asks the chief, would you still call him rotten? The chief bows down, saying, Master Cain, please pardon me. Cain accepts the apology. The guild master then says, for defeating 30 lizards, I'll raise your rank to C. Tijuana interjects, saying, come on brother, C rank isn't nearly good enough. He defeated a red dragon at the age of 10. He's even stronger than me. Rita and the chief are shocked to realize that he's the strongest in the kingdom. The guild master suggests, why don't I just put you on A rank? They both react with shock, saying, A rank on his first day. The guild master instructs them to complete the paperwork, and they both leave. He then apologizes for his subordinates' rude behavior. He stands up and walks behind them. Putting his hands on their shoulders, he says, "Please take care of my sister. She's a bit rambunctious." Tijuana questions, "What do you mean by rambunctious?" She then adds, "Anyway, I found a perfect man for me." Meanwhile, the gods are observing Cain. An old god comments, "Cain needs to become more stronger. Aaron's seal will break soon." Everyone is shocked by this revelation. If Aaron returns, the world will be in trouble. The scene then shifts to a man whom the gods have chosen as Cain's new master to train him, while Cain is overjoyed to see his A-rank gold card. In the next scene, we see Cain just waking up from sleep when Sylvia appears saying, "It's your academy entrance exam today. Hurry up." She then runs to drop him off at the gate and says, "If you end up late because of me, I'll regret it." He says, "Don't worry, I won't be late," and runs to teleport outside his academy. He says, "I knew I'd make it in time." He then goes to the receptionist, who gives him the admit card for the exam. As he walks into class and looks around, he wonders, maybe Silk and Telestia are in a different room, and sits down. The examiner then appears and says, "The entrance exam will now begin." Another examiner starts distributing exam papers. Examiner says, "You have 2 hours to finish the exam," and puts the timer on the table. Cain feels lucky to see the questions. He knows almost everything. Half an hour has passed, and seeing Cain relaxing, examiner asks, "Are you sure you can afford to relax?" Cain replies, "Oh, I have already finished the paper." The teacher is amazed to hear this. 2 hours pass, and the teacher stops everyone saying, "Class will now proceed to the magic ability assessment." They all gather in a field, and the examiner instructs, "Choose a target and direct your strongest spell at it." Cain asks, "Can we use our full power?" She replies, "Yes, there is a defensive barrier around this area, so it's safe." Now the first student creates a fireball and shoots the target. Another also does the same. Cain is shocked to see it so weak, then realizes, "Oh yeah, that's about how powerful most 12-year-olds are. And here I was thinking about using Inferno." Now it's Cain's turn. He tries to create a beginner-level magic ball. The teacher says, "What's that?" And he shoots it towards the target with full speed. But it not only destroys the target but goes beyond the walls, creating a lot of damage. The examiner shockingly says, "Impossible," while Cain says, "I only used a beginner-level spell at full power." Another examiner runs to check beyond the wall to make sure no one was there, and the blonde also follows, saying, "You all proceed to the swordsmanship exam." Cain feels sorry for this as they are shocked to see the disaster beyond the wall. Now they all are gathered to give the swordsmanship exam. The examiner tells, "We have a rank adventurers to take your exam today." Claude spots Cain and asks, "Why are you here?" Cain replies, "I turned 12, so I'm taking the entrance exam." He says, "I'll be your opponent then." Cain refuses, shocking Claude. The examiner says, "You can't refuse his invitation. He's the highest ranked examiner." Now they both are in front of each other. Claude says, "Come at me with all you've got." Cain boosts himself and runs to attack him. Claude is amazed to see Cain can use boost while stopping him with his sword. They both start fighting. One student says, "Cain is so fast." Another says, "We can't even see what's going on." While fighting, Cain says, "This is an exam. Please don't put so much force into it." Claude says, "You are strong. This is starting to get fun." Claude then boosts up, and he seems to be enjoying the fight with Cain. Just then, the examiner stops them, saying, "Your battle is making other students wither on the spot." Cain looks at the faces of students who are in complete shock. Claude says, "Let's battle again someday," and Cain replies, "I'd rather decline." Now Cain comes back home. Sylvia asks, "How was the exam?" He says, "I did everything right, so I should make it in." Sylvia gets happy, but just then, his stomach growls. Sylvia says, "You are a growing boy, I'll go and make something good to eat." In the next scene, we see Cain in front of the king, who tells him, "I got the letter from the academy regarding you." Cain explains, "The examiner told me to use magic with full power as they have a strong barrier, but it got destroyed." The king says, "You again overdid it, Cain." He replies, "Pardon me, I'll be more prudent in the future." The king then asks Cain, "Where did you take the exam?" Telestia and Silk said they didn't see you at the exam site. Cain responds, "I checked in at the south entrance and took the exam in the room they directed me to." The king says, "Cain, the south entrance was for commoners. You had to enter through the north entrance, which was for nobles' exams." Cain gets shocked to realize this, and the duke says, "You gave exams with commoners. That's why the headmaster of the academy came to talk with me. The headmaster told me that there is a commoner kid who got a perfect score on the exam, destroyed the barrier, and fought on equal footing with an A-rank adventurer." Eric laughs and says, "I bet his name is Cain." The headmaster asks, how do you know him? And the Duke explains everything, then says, I'm sure Prime Minister Magna will be shocked to see the repair bills. In the present, Magna shows the bill to Kane, and he gets shocked to see they'll have to pay for what he did. The king also scolds him, and Kane apologizes. The next day, we see Kane at the academy looking for his results. Just then, Silk appears and congratulates him for topping the class, telling him his result is in the nobles list there. She tells him that Telestia was angry not to see him at the exam site, and then says, well, look forward to seeing me in my uniform, and leaves. Next, we see Rina instructing new students on their first day. Just then, she spots Kane and goes to hug him, saying, I'm glad you topped the exam. Good luck for your speech at the entrance ceremony. He asks, what? I have to give a speech. She says, yes, every year the top scoring student gives a speech. He says, what a drag, while Rina hugs him, saying, good luck. Now we see Sylvia impatiently waiting for Kane. Just when he enters, she asks about the results. He says, I topped the class. Sylvia gets emotional and hugs him, saying, I'm so glad. She then says, let's celebrate today, and runs to prepare. His butler also congratulates Kane, and he thanks him. The next day, Kane enters for the entrance ceremony. He spots his mother and father and waves to them, and they wave back, they came to see him. Silk and Telestia also appear. He greets them and says, I look forward to studying together. You two look great. They both are also flattered by his looks in uniform. Now, the entrance ceremony begins, and they all are sitting in the hall. Guys envy seeing Telestia and Silk sitting with Kane. The headmaster says, now we'll commence the entrance ceremony, and calls Kane to present his speech. Everyone claps as Kane walks toward the stage. He introduces himself and says, I messed up during exam day, but I'm glad the academy forgave me. His parents feel embarrassed for this. Then he says, I hope we all get along, and everyone claps. Just then, Riani and another senior appear and tell, Our Majesty the King is here, he'll say a few words. The king walks toward the stage, nudging the Kane aside. He starts patting Kane while congratulating everyone and says, I hope students follow the academy rules properly. Kane feels like he's being warned. The Duke and the minister laugh behind the stage. Telestia and Silk try to control their laughter as the king keeps patting him while giving the speech. His parents are all flushed. Later in class, we see Silk and Telestia waving Kane to come and sit with them. The teacher appears and says, I'm Elka Portley, I'll be your homeroom teacher. First, choose your course of study. Kane says, I gotta go for adventuring. And the girls say no. He starts sulking as Telestia says, you're noble. Silk says, you can choose adventuring along with nobility. Kane says, oh yes, I'll choose both and also magic. Telestia says, I'll choose nobility and internal affairs to manage your future domain. Silk says, I'll choose nobility and commerce to help your future domain too. Kane thanks both of them, and they both get more excited to study for him. After class, when they come out, guys are bullying a girl. It's Parma, the cat-eared girl. They bully her, asking, what is a commoner like you doing in Class A? Kane says, nobles and commoners are to be treated equally at school. And on top of that, this girl is my friend. All the noble kids are shocked to hear this. A guy says, are you siding with a commoner instead of the Duke's son? I'll ask my father to ruin her life. Silk appears and asks, what are you ruining exactly? They are in cold sweat to see her, and Telestia appears from behind, asking, what's going on here? They freak out and bow down, apologizing for everything they said. Telestia says, apologize to the one whom you bullied, and they apologize to Parma and run from there. Parma thanks Kane for the help and then says, I am so happy that I'm in the same academy as you. Kane says, it's impressive that you're in class. All the ladies interrupt and say, you two seem to be close. Silk tells him to sit there on his heels and take Parma with them to talk. As they were talking, Kane listens to a voice who tells him to come to the library. He wants to talk with him. He goes to the library, and when he opens the door, he sees a palace. And then he's teleported inside. A man is making coffee. Kane frantically asks, who are you? The man says, I was waiting for you, I'm Shina Kazuya. The man gives him coffee and says, I'm Yuya Hirasawa. Kane gets shocked, asking, you are the first king. Hirasawa asks, how do you know about that? Kane responds, I read it in the book you wrote, but that was more than 300 years ago, and checks if Hirasawa is a ghost. Hirasawa says, just check for yourself. Kane opens the status and is shocked to see that Hirasawa is now the god of creation. He replies, I created this world, Fabnail. That's why I still look like this even after 300 years. Kane is shocked by this. Hirasawa then tells Kane, the gods asked me to train you. Kane says, I'm already very strong. Hirasawa asks him, can you take this cookie from me then? Kane tries but is immediately stopped by Hirasawa. Kane then asks, why do I have to train more? Hirasawa tells him, because you need to fight someone who made people all over the world fight and kill each other 300 years ago. He used Oracle to sow distrust of other countries in everyone's subconsciousness, forcing them to fight. The one you need to fight is the evil god, Eren. I managed to seal him 300 years ago, but recently, that seal has started to loosen. Kane says, then you seal him again. Hirasawa replies, I am the god of this world now. I can't interfere in the world you are living in. Kane realizes what Hirasawa means, and Hirasawa says, yes, it's up to you. Kane says, I knew it. Hirasawa then holds Kane and teleports them onto the water, shocking Kane completely. He is given a sword, and Hirasawa tells him the task he has to complete. He then gives him a compass to keep moving in the direction it indicates. Once you finish the task, you will reach back to the mansion with the help of the compass. After instructing him, Hirasawa leaves. Kane calls him, and he appears back, saying, either you do or you don't. Kane now moves to complete the task. First, he jumps over the big snake that appears in front of him, and then he slashes away the big monster that appears soon after. Just then, another monster appears, and Kane goes to fight him. Meanwhile, Silk and Telestia are talking with Sylvia, who tells them Kane hasn't been back since yesterday. The girls say he wasn't at school, so they came to check here. Sylvia panics, and Telestia says, I will wait for Kane here, I know he'll come back soon. Back to Kane, who is held by the monster. The monster is about to eat him, but Kane slashes it away. He is now lying on the ground, thinking about how to get out of this forest. Just then, he hears a voice and starts moving in that direction. He finds an animal lying injured and in pain. He approaches it and tries to end its misery by killing it. But just then, he remembers his past life when he was saving the girls. He stops himself and then starts healing the animal. Though he's left with so little magic, he heals it and then falls down. In the next moment, it bites the monsters and then jumps to bite another. Kane is awake and asks, so you were protecting me? It jumps on him and starts licking him with love. Kane asks, you're alone, I'm also alone. Let's be together, and it gets happy. He names it Haku. At night, they both eat some meat and then sleep together. Now, they both together defeat the monsters on their way. They finally complete the task as they reach outside the mansion. They open the door, and Hirasawa welcomes them, saying, you sure got bigger. Kane asks, how many years has it been? He replies, about 4. Then he spots the animal with him and asks, is that Fenrir? We get to know Fenrir is the holy beast. Kane then tells it to go back as he can summon it anytime. Hirasawa tells him that his training is still not completed yet. A guy comes and Hirasawa tells him, he'll give you training now. Kane greets him and asks, before we train, please tell me more about Eren. He tells him, Eren is not only stronger than me but stronger than Hirasawa also. Now training starts. Kane jumps to fight, but the trainer stops him and he gets unconscious. Next, when his eyes open, he's on the bed. Haru comes to pamper him. The woman says, oh, you're awake, when he comes down the stairs. She's his trainer's wife, and she tells him, it's our home. He spots the baby dragon and runs to meet it. As he talks with it, Haru comes and both get angry at each other. The dragon flies away. Just then, Rory says, food is ready, let's eat it. Kane eats it, and tears come out of his eyes. Durain asks, what happened? He says, it's been a while since I ate delicious food. Rory says, I'm glad you liked it. Kane cries more, saying, I was on my own in the wilderness for 4 years. Durain says, then eat your fill, and Rory says, I'll make more for you. Meanwhile, Silk and Telestia are rolling dough as they talk about Kane not being home yet. Just then, Sylvia appears and says, if you really want to learn cooking for Kane-sama, you need to work harder. The girls say, yes, we will work harder. Back to Kane, who is training with Durain. He tries to punch back Durain, but it seems like he needs a lot more training. Later, they walk back home, and Rory welcomes them. Kane is very exhausted and falls down. 1 year has passed, and Kane is still training with Durain, who hits him so hard that he falls on the ground. Durain tells him to get up, saying, you're really very weak to fight Eren, which enrages him. Now we see a flashback where Kane asks Hirasawa about Eren. Hirasawa tells him, Eren used to be the god of amusement. Kane is amazed and says, that means there were 8 gods. Hirasawa says, yep, there are no games or amusement in your world, right? Because the god of amusement, that is Eren, is gone. He used an oracle to make people participate in a death game, and that's why he got banished from the realm of gods. If he comes back, that death game will start again, and people precious to you will be caught up in it. Kane asks, how can I stop him? Hirasawa replies, get stronger to fight him. Back to the present, Kane goes to attack Durain. As he is fighting him, Hirasawa says, I want to tell you something. Eren is linked to Shana Kazuya, which means he is linked to your previous life. It was a tragic accident, and women came to reincarnate me, your mom and dad, to another world. After getting stronger in another world, the gods gave us a mission to defeat Eren. They gave us a crystal to seal him. Next, we see Kane's past life dad and Hirasawa fighting with Eren. As his dad's sword touches Eren's cloth, he gets enraged. He shoots at so many humans at once, making them vanish. His mom protects a woman and falls off. The woman tries to heal her, but it doesn't work. His dad goes to attack Eren but ends up getting stabbed. Kane cries out, "Dad, get away," as if he can see everything that had happened. He calls for Hirasawa to seal Eren, who brings the crystal and seals him. While dying, Kazuya's parents were only worried about their child. Back to the present, Kane fights back harder as he wants to protect the people whom he loves and ends up breaking Durain's sword, finally defeating him. Durain says, "Your training is complete." Kane runs to see his mom and dad but only finds Hirasawa in front of their graves, and realizes they are dead. He approaches Hirasawa, who says sorry for not being able to protect his friends. Tears fall from Kane's eyes, but he feels proud to know his parents were brave. This time, Hirasawa asks him to try taking the cookie again, and Kane does it this time. Hirasawa says, "You've gotten stronger." Kane says, "Now I'll go back to my world." Hirasawa stops him, saying, "You've been here for 5 years. 5 years here means 5 days there," and changes him back to young Kane, saying, "Take Haku with you." Durain also gives him the young dragon. He then thanks both of his teachers, and Hirasawa gives him the sword for the current king, and Kane leaves. Now, Durain says, "He'll grow stronger than us," and Hirasawa says, "Of course." Kane is now back at his mansion, and Sylvia gets emotional to see him. She goes to hug him, and Silk and Telestia also follow. Telestia says, "We had faith that you would come back." They say, "We learned to cook cookies," and Kane gets excited to see that. He starts eating so fast, saying, "They are so good." Both the girls say, "Welcome home, Master Kane," and he gets emotional. In the next scene, we see the present king reading the letter from the first king and asking, "So you were with the first king?" Kane replies, "Yes, he's a god of creation in a separate world which he created." Kane then takes out the katana the first king gave for the recent king. Seeing this, the king says, "I believe you." Kane adds, "He even trained me. It was tough training where he made me fight dangerous monsters of the forest, engage in mock battles until I collapsed every single day. I trained for 5 years. The king gets shocked, asking, "How could it have been 5 years?" Kane realizes what he said. Eric laughs and says, "You are amusing even after 5 years. He then continues, "While you were gone, a notice came from the Adventurer Guild. Your registration will be cancelled to advance for rank A if you don't go for the quest soon." Kane freaks out hearing this. He then goes to meet the guild master, asking, "What's all this about cancelling registration?" The guild master replies, "I've been worried since you haven't come by to accept my quest." Kane explains, "I had to go somewhere urgently." The guild master remarks, "Well, Sister Tijuana was so sad you were gone." Kane asks, "Can you tell me about the quest?" The guild master responds, "You have to accept the quest right away or I'll cancel your registration." Kane pleads, "Please let me do it." The guild master hands him over the paper having details of bandits, saying, "You need to subjugate them. Will you able to handle it?" "Well, I guess it's silly to ask that you are the strongest in the capital." Kane says, "Well, I'll look into it anyway." Kane then teleports to the area of the bandits, flying up and starting to check the area. He spots a few people stopping the carriage and says, "I found them," while he goes down to stop them. But he's shocked to see Master Nina, Millie, and Sabinos. He goes to Millie as she's hurt and heals her. A bandit says, "Little kids should just stay home suckling on their mommy's teat." Kane retorts, "You'll pay dearly for injuring Master Millie," and they all run to attack him. Kane boosts himself and a bandit comes to attack him, but Kane trips him up. Another bandit comes from behind and Kane swiftly attacks at his abdomen. When a third one tries to attack, Kane stops him and then counterattacks, throwing him back into a tree. The others become enraged and move to fight Kane, but he defeats them one by one, slashing them away. Afterwards, Sabinos thanks him for saving their lives. His masters ask, "What are you doing here?" Kane replies, "I came here to subjugate bandits." Both are confused because subjugation quests are typically for higher rank adventurers. Kane shows them his gold guild card, and they are shocked that he's been promoted to A rank so fast. Kane says, "Some things happened, and I got promoted." Next, we see Kane carrying the bandits towards the guild, with people looking at them and questioning if these bandits feel any shame. On the way, they drop off Sabinos, and Parma comes out, excited to see Kane. Parma asks about the bandits, and Kane replies, "It was the quest to capture them." Parma acknowledges his hard work, not only as an adventurer but also as a baron. Millie shockingly asks, "Kane, are you a baron now?" "Nina, we have to call him Baron Kane now." Kane insists, "Please don't do that, you are still my masters." Millie hugs him, saying, "You really grew up in just a few years." Kane then says, "Okay, then I have to report to the guild now." Millie and Nina follow him, saying, "We're also coming." Now, Cain gives his report, saying, I have finished my quest. Rita is amazed that he finished it already. Just then, a few men come and suggest hanging out together with the ladies. The ladies reply, we're not interested. A man tries to stop them, but Cain holds his hand, saying, leave them alone. Just then, they realize and freak out, recognizing Cain from before. Cain is very angry at them. Just then, someone appears from behind, and Cain's mood turns to happiness because it's Claude. Millie also waves to Claude, and Cain says, these are my masters. Claude says, she's my kid sister. Cain is amazed to know this. Claude then suggests, alright, let's have a drink, but his wife smacks him, saying, you always need an excuse for a drink. Now they all sit together and enjoy their drinks. Claude asks, why are you guys all together today? Nina says, Cain showed up while we were on a mission and defeated bandits. Cain is already a rank. Claude freaks out, saying, already in a rank. Well, you are strong, Cain. Nina adds, he's a baron too, shocking them even more. Millie asks, but how did you get so strong, Cain? Cain thinks he can't tell them that he was trained by a god. Millie then says, you even killed a red dragon at the age of 10. Claude is surprised because only an SS rank hunter can defeat a red dragon. They then show their magic bags that Cain gave to them. Lena is amazed and asks, how much does it hold? Millie replies, it's never been full. Lena asks Cain, can you tell me? Cain hesitates, so Nina steps in, saying, he told me that a mansion would fit in them. Lena exclaims, that makes them national treasure class. She then tells Cain, can you make for us also? Cain agrees, and she hugs him, thanking him. Just then, he remembers he hasn't been to school in a week. Claude asks, why does a noble like you need to go to school? Don't you feel like you don't fit in? Cain responds, yes, I do, but I need to learn a lot of things. Nina says, Cain, you're a good boy. I'll give you a hug. Cain runs from there, saying, I've got to get to school. As he leaves, Resha appears and says, the adventurer who is going to take tomorrow's class at school is injured. We need a substitute. Claude asks, can you tell me the details? The next day at school, the teacher instructs them for magic class, and they all say, yes, teacher. Cain feels excited as he thinks of using what the first king taught him during training. But the teacher then calls him and says, Cain, you're forbidden to use magic. You'll just observe. The barrier can't hold your magic. Claude and others watch this, and he says, Cain really doesn't fit. Are you ready to give him a hand? The ladies say, yes, Roger. In the next class, their teacher tells them, we have someone to teach you today. It's Claude and the others. A girl says, I know them, and a boy replies, yes, they're from Ice Flame. The teacher then says, we have a rank adventurer and a B rank adventurer to teach you today. Cain thinks, they should have told me yesterday that they were coming. Claude says, now everyone show your guild card first. Everyone takes out theirs, but Cain didn't. Claude asks, you don't have the guild card. Cain tells him everything with his expression, indicating that if he shows his card, everyone will be shocked to see an A rank card as they are all newly registered. Claude still teases him, where is your card? Cain thinks and then replies, I forgot it. He replies, make sure from next time you don't forget it. Lena says, Cain really is pretty heavily isolated. Claude comes and says, we'll have to use the trump card. Next, he tells the students, we'll start with mock battles. Who wants to come first? A kid volunteers and starts to fight Claude but loses soon. When Cain wants to go, another kid goes before him. He asks Master Nina, and she says, we are not allowed to use attack magic. He feels isolated, but they all already plan to make him the hero of the class. He's very impatient for his turn. He wants to go, but a girl goes first. A boy says, no cutting the line, and the line is already too long. Now he gets more impatient. He says, hurry, hurry. Finally, only one remains. Claude throws away her sword. Now Cain and Claude stand in front of each other. They both run to fight each other, but when their swords meet, the bell rings, and the teacher stops them. Cain says, but my chance just came. Claude says, sorry, Cain. Next time. The teacher replies, there will be no next time. Calling in a special teacher for adventuring is off our schedule for a while. Cain asks why. The teacher replies, we don't have the budget. Repairing the damage you did cost us a lot of money. Cain feels distressed. When he looks towards Claude, he ignores him and says, well, bye. At night, to take out his anger, Cain goes to the forest and starts destroying everything, saying, Claude, you're a jerk, and then slashes away a big monster that appears. He then shoots fireballs. A knight watching this says, we have bad news, and gives the signal to everyone. The whole army runs toward the forest, followed by Cain's father. Cain feels better now and leaves. When they reach there, they're shocked to see a hole. The next day, the king talks with Cain, telling him that Garm reported about the hole and everything was destroyed. He asks, what shall we do? Cain realizes it was him and says, I think we need not to do anything. The king asks, why, Cain? Tell me. Cain hesitates, and the king says, you're hiding something, Cain. Finally, he has to confess that it was him. Now we see a stone fall down, a monster picks it up. But a big monster appears and swallows it. Its eyes widen, and then we see a boy smiling, saying, so the seal has weakened. In the next scene, we see the teacher instructing students about summoning magic. She then asks if Cain is here. He thinks he can't participate again as usual, so he walks away. The teacher stops him, saying, "You can participate today as we're not using attack magic." Cain says, "Thank you." The teacher then tells them, "We have a specialist to teach you today," who introduces himself, "I'm Grat and I work as Palace Mage." He explains that there are two types of summoning magic. One is to summon a monster from a magic circle and form a contract with it, and the other is to establish a bond with a monster and form a contract with it. Cain remembers he has done this before. Grat tells them, "We will be testing magic circle summoning today," and instructs them to use these for summoning. The students start summoning the cute little creature and make a contract. Now, a boy says, "It's my turn." When he summons the beast, it's so fierce. He hesitatingly says, "Contract with me," but it vanishes instead. The teacher tells him, "Unfortunately, you didn't have enough magic to make it submit." He then tells Cain to try his summoning magic now. When he puts the paper on the ground, he suddenly remembers that last time he summoned a crazy beast, and he's hesitant to summon now. The teacher says, "Don't worry. If you won't be able to form a contract, it will vanish." Cain replies, "Okay then. I'll put in all the magic I want." While summoning, he thinks of getting one that his other creatures can play with. Just then, the teacher freaks out seeing something very powerful about to come out. A bright blue light appears with thunder and lightning, which makes Cain fall away. The creature appeared as sitting on the magic circle, and as it opens its eyes, he asks, "Why has a human summoned me, the Prince of Darkness?" Cain tries to send it back using flash, but it won't work. Cain recalls the creature calling himself the Prince of Darkness and wonders if he's on Aaron's side. The creature says, "So it was you who summoned me, lowly human." He checks Cain's status and moves fiercely towards him. Cain takes out the sword. Seeing this, the creature just bows down, saying, "Forgive my rude behavior," shocking Cain. He tells Cain, "I am called by the name Seth, and I'll form a contract with you. If you give the order to destroy a nation, I will deploy the full might of the demon clan to carry it out." Cain says, "I won't destroy any nation." Seth says, "Okay, Cain-sama, I'll take my leave. Summon me when you need me." Just when he leaves, the teacher asks Cain, "Was that guy calling himself the Prince of Darkness?" Cain says, "But I couldn't form a contract with him." The teacher says, "Okay then," and walks away. Cain feels relieved that he managed to cover it up, but next, we see him in front of the king. He couldn't manage to cover it up, and the king wants to hear everything from him. Cain admits, "I summoned the Prince of Darkness and formed a contract with them," shocking them all. The king expresses concern, saying, "Do you have any idea if he'd go on a rampage? He could have destroyed the whole capital in the blink of an eye." Cain apologizes, as he never imagined something like that would happen. The teacher remarks, "Summoning a Prince of Darkness. Just how much magic do you have?" The king speculates that training with the first king might have increased his magic, confusing the teacher, who asks, "First king?" The king then asks Cain to show his magic status and instructs Grat to never tell anyone about all this. Cain opens his magic status, amazing everyone as they see he's now a demigod. The teacher bows down, saying, "You're a god," but Cain stops him. The king decides to promote Cain to Viscount and give him a town to govern as he pleases. Then he leaves, remarking, "A man who cannot protect a single house or a nation cannot hope to protect an entire nation." Later, we see Sylvia talking with Cain in his mansion. He tells her that he'll be promoted as Viscount, and she says let's celebrate. Just then, his butler appears and informs him that his brother Jin sent a letter, saying signs of an onslaught have been observed in the forest of monsters. Cain gets up, asking, "What?" Next, we see Cain has come to meet his brother Jin, who tells him that a vast number of adventurers have been attacked by monsters in the forest for the past couple of months. The number of monsters roaming the forest has grown recently, and they've turned savage. Jin reminds Cain about the incident a few decades ago when monsters went savage and attacked the capital. He mentions that the state of the forest now is the same as it was then. Cain says, "I'll take a look around the forest myself," but Jin insists on accompanying him. Cain shows him his A-rank guild card and reminds him that he even defeated a red dragon, so he shouldn't worry. Jin agrees, and Cain decides to go to the guild first to collect more information. At the guild, a receptionist remarks, "Sending out kids now. The guild must be short-handed." But when Cain shows his card, the receptionist is totally shocked. Ruddy appears and apologizes, saying, "Forgive this rookie's lack of discipline. What brings you here today?" Cain asks them about the trouble in the forest, and she explains that there are increasing signs of an onslaught. It's difficult to even get near the forest because monsters have become so savage, resulting in many injuries. Cain feels bad for their condition. Just then, Millie and Nina appear and Cain gets excited and runs to meet them. They ask why he's there and Cain tells them everything. Nina tells Cain that they went inside the forest and encountered many strong monsters. Millie adds that the two of them can't handle them on their own, so Claude and Lena will be joining them soon. Cain says, oh, they are coming. That's very reassuring. Ruddy approaches Cain and asks, what are you going to do? Cain responds, I'll go and check the forest. Nina insists that he can't go alone, and Millie agrees. Ruddy suggests it'd be better if Cain had someone to go with him. Cain replies, I do, but not a person. Cain reaches the forest and summons his creatures Haku and Jin, who jump to love him. Just then, they smell something, and Cain says, we're going to investigate this forest. Cain starts searching, and as he's checking the forest, he feels like he's being watched. A wild beast appears, and he slashes it off. Haku bites another big beast, killing it, while Jin blows fire, and Cain slashes the monster. He summons the Prince of Darkness, who appears and fiercely asks, who summoned me? But then he bows down upon seeing that it's Cain. Cain says, I need your help to investigate the forests. Seth tells him, I can sense an overwhelming presence, a quiet high-level creature. Cain realizes that if those strong monsters get into the kingdom, there'll be big trouble. Seth decides to summon his subordinate to investigate further. Dalmatia appears bowing to Seth, but when he looks back, he sees Cain and asks, who is he? Seth explains, he's the one I'm contracted with. He's the god who'll conquer the world. Cain cries out, I'm not going to conquer anything now. Dalmatia, you start your investigation. Dalmatia says, as you wish, God Cain. He creates a hole, and insects start coming out. Cain tells him not to let them out there, and Dalmatia closes the hole, sending them to investigate through different paths. Just then, the red monsters start appearing, and Cain goes to slash them off. Dalmatia is amazed to see this and turns back to ask Seth how powerful Cain is. Just then Cain appears with all the monsters he defeated, saying, I'll be back soon. Dalmatia is even more amazed to see how powerful Cain is. Meanwhile, the girls are standing amazed at the guild. Claude also appears. He asks where all these monsters came from, and Cain explains that they were in the forest of monsters. He then says that there are even stronger monsters deep in the forest. Meanwhile, Dalmatia is investigating the forest and says, something beyond here is trying to intimidate us. It's saying, don't you dare to come closer. Seth tells Dalmatia that they are going inside, and he follows him. Then, we see Aaron, who sense their presence. As they both reach inside, they see the full army of high-level monsters. Aaron gives them orders, saying, go, all of you. It's time to start the game. Rampage, devour humans. All the monsters follow his orders. Seth says, we must warn Master Cain at once, and then teleports. Just then, Cain senses something and runs to check it out. He can hear the warning bell. Seth also appears and tells Cain that monsters are moving in their direction. Cain tells the plan to Claude and then tells Seth, let's go. Tijuana also appears and hugs Cain, saying, I was informed that there is an emergency. Cain tells her, I'm heading to the forest. Please protect the town. Tijuana happily says, yes, I'll follow my husband's orders very well. Cain leaves, saying, I'm counting on you. They both run in the direction of the forest. Now we see Dalmatia fighting with the monsters. A monster appears from behind but gets destroyed before touching him. Cain and Seth arrive. Cain uses Inferno to destroy the monsters. Then, he looks in the direction from where monsters are coming out, and we see Aaron smirking, saying, the game has already begun. Cain says, I know it's Aaron. Seth tells Cain, I will handle things here. You can go after Aaron. Cain responds, okay, I'm counting on you, and leaves. Seth then says, follow me, Dalmatia. Now we see Tijuana instructing everyone to hurry toward a safer place, while Claude asks, how many monsters are coming? They sense there is a whole army. Millie says, I'm going to the forest, but Claude stops her. She insists, I know Cain is strong, but I still want to help him. Nina says, I will also go. Claude reluctantly says, I have no choice but to go with you. His wife bonks him, saying, let's go, Slowpoke, and they all head towards the forest. Meanwhile, we see the Prince of Darkness saying, summon my loyal subjects, and they appear, asking, what can we do for you? They then look down and are completely shocked to see their surroundings. Seth says, a friend requested for help, now get things under control here. They question, is this friend so great to make a request of the Prince of Darkness? Just then, Dalmatia appears, saying, it's nice to see you all again, and they are even more shocked to see the legendary demon general there. He says, I was also asked by Lord Seth's friend. They ask, who is this friend? He responds, that friend is God's chosen. They ask, shockingly, really? Seth says, I will explain everything later. Right now, protecting this place is more important. He says, let's go, and they all follow him, starting to devour the monsters. Meanwhile, Cain is moving further to reach Aaron. He clears his path full of monsters. Just then, he uses Inferno and something counterattacks. He uses Inferno again, and again someone counterattacks. Just then, a dragon appears and says, you took such good care of my brethren. Cain asks, you're the one who started this onslaught, Black Dragon. No, the former god of amusement, Aaron. Aaron replies, sadly, only part of my body has been revived, so I am using the body of this dragon. He then breathes fire, creating more monsters. Cain tells him to stop, but Aaron says, this is the game to see whether all the humans get devoured by the monsters, and then again blows fire to create more monsters. Cain becomes enraged, and Aaron says, I wonder how long your friends can hold out. Now we see one of Seth's subjects cleaning up the monsters. Claude spots them, saying, people are floating on air. Lena bonks him, saying, no time to joke, but when they look up, they are amazed to see their powers. Millie asks, they're on our side. Nina says, they may be Cain's friends. One of Seth's subjects says, there are too many, while finishing them off. Seth says, take out as many as you can, and the rest, humans will handle. While Nina senses them, Claude and Millie run in the direction of the monsters. They both start devouring the monsters. Back to Cain, Aaron looks into his eyes and says, it's infuriating. They're the same as the eyes of the people who sealed me. Cain says, you mean my mother and father. Aaron gets angry and attacks him, saying, die. But Cain dodges the attack. Aaron again fires at Cain, but he runs away from it. He uses Inferno and attacks back, but it has no effect. Aaron says, I am not at my full strength. But still, do you think such magic would work on me? Cain says, I need to work more magic into it. But Aaron says, I won't give you time, and attacks him with full might. Meanwhile, Lena uses Ice Blizzard to kill monsters. Nina uses Air Cutter to cut them off. Claude slashes them off with his sword. Millie says, how long is this gonna go on? While slashing off the monsters, Claude says, I bet we'll get to drink some mighty tasty booze when it's all over. Millie says, can't wait. Meanwhile, Aaron is chasing Cain and keeps attacking. Cain summons Haku and Jin, who go to attack the dragon. It falls down and starts firing, then throws away Haku, injuring it. Cain cries out, Haku, and just then, the dragon shoots a fireball towards him. Meanwhile, we see Claude and Millie fighting monsters. As Nina uses her magic, this time she gets exhausted as she's been fighting for so long. Lena tells Claude, you guys retreat and leave us here. Claude gets angry and says, shut up. I won't leave you ever, which makes her emotional. Claude tries to stop the monster. Suddenly another one comes, and Millie tries to stop it. Nina attacks it with her magic and gets unconscious. A giant monster attacks, and Claude is trying hard to stop it. Just then, someone shoots arrows at the monster, making it fall. It's Tijuana who comes to rescue them. She jumps and defeats another monster trying to harm Millie. Claude recalls who she is, and she says, you guys can go back. Reinforcements are here. I will take the lead from here. Claude says, I won't back off, we're gonna fight alongside you. Meanwhile, Haku is being attacked by Aaron. Cain cries out, Haku. It keeps attacking Haku and Jin. Cain goes to protect them and defends them from Aaron's attack. Aaron says, this kind of thing annoys me. Cain says, is it annoying to you to protect one's friend? What part of it annoys you? Aaron says, shut up, you dog of the old god. He says, it has nothing to do with gods, I just want to protect all of them I love. And he uses his power, Overlord. Aaron remembers that this is the same light from back then. Cain uses Saint Century and attacks Aaron. Aaron counterattacks with his full might. Both use their power with full might, and then a bright line of light appears. Everyone is amazed to see that. People start praying. Cain uses his full power to send Aaron back. Just then, his creatures stop him. Seth and Dalmatia also appear, saying, you overdid it. And he sees Aaron is already sealed, and the land has become fiery. Then they tell him that the onslaught has stopped too. Cain is happy to hear this. Claude and the group also see the monsters are running back to the forest. The town is also now safe as monsters fled back. The onslaught is over. Cain happily runs to meet others. Everyone goes to hug him. He is happy that in this world he can save people dear to him. Seth looks at him and says, he's the right chosen one, and Dalmatia agrees. And then they leave. Both creatures are also happy to see everyone happy. The next day, the king scolds him for overdoing and creating that beam of light because now people think gods had descended upon this land. The Duke and Prime Minister are laughing to hear this. Cain apologizes, saying, I used Emperor-level magic at the dragon, which shocks them. The king warns him to not use overpowered magic and to practice self-restraint. The king then says, I will grant you your own domain as a reward to stop the onslaught. Later, he announces in front of everyone to grant him the domain of Dorenthal. Cain says, for the prosperity of the kingdom of Esfort, I'll devote myself to it. Later, when Tijuana meets him, she hugs him for getting a whole domain, but she tells him that nobles who have been put in charge of that town always flee from it. Cain asks, so I'll be shipped off to Dorenthal. Silk says, that's cruel. I'm going to protest, father. Cain stops her, saying, wait, actually, it's exciting for me. I get to build a new town. A brand new town where everyone can smile. Let's build it together. The next day, Cain heads to Dorenthal. A guard sees his A rank card and welcomes him. Later, a knight gives news to the king that when Cain arrived at Dorenthal, he got assaulted by the guild, but Cain handled them very well using his magic. The arena was heavily damaged. This shocks the king and minister. Later, at the guild when he was drinking, a girl was called by adventurers. She serves the drink, but they kicked her for being late, and this made Cain pissed off. So, he became outraged and kicked adventurers out one by one. The king gets shocked when he gets to know that Cain even got arrested later for all this. Later, when Cain is with Silk and Telestia, the Prince of Darkness appears and says, help me, Cain-sama. My wife learned about my infidelity. Cain asks, and you came to me. Just then, his wife appears, and he gets scared. She approaches Cain and says, I'm Lefon von Dalstein. Nice to meet you, and holds her husband from the ears. The girls are amazed by Lefon's beauty. Cain also introduces himself. Lefon says, I need a favor, Master Cain. Tell me, what do you think of Seth as a man? Cain answers, it's inexcusable, and Seth is in a cold sweat. He says, how can you do this with such unparalleled beauty? And she smiles to have such a compliment. Seth says she was a sweet girl before marriage, and she gets angry. The girls say, you don't have the right to talk about this after cheating on her. Cain doesn't know what to do in this situation. Lefon says, yes, ladies, cheating is wrong, and Cain-sama, don't you dare to cheat on these girls. And he says, yes, ma'am. She then says, I'll take my leave, and take Seth with her. A man tells the king that Cain even protected the church from getting attacked. He was already there when robbers entered and turned them away. Cain took things even further. He built a wall. The old god watches him and laughs. He then tells another god Cain has to learn more. He even built a beautiful castle, and Telestia says it's even more impressive than father's. Cain smiles as the girls say he took things too far again. And with this, our story ends here. Please like the video and leave a comment below. I'll read each and every one of your comments. Don't forget, you guys are the best.